Cool. All right. Well, you want to get started? Everyone good?
Oh, but we missed the part where we try to come up with some witty pre-show banter.
Oh, I gotta find that stuff. It's half the fun.
Pre-show banter?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what do you want to banter about?
I don't know.
Last week it was like coffee in a thermos and why he hates it or something like that.
I don't hate thermoses. I just think they're black magic.
You should,
I don't know.
Do you think thermoses are black magic?
I don't understand. I don't. Okay, like I know the laws of thermodynamics and everything, but I just don't understand how a simple like thermal cup keeps things hot all day, like it's fresh off the stove. Like you can open up one at the end of the day, it's just like still piping hot. And I just don't. I think there's some uranium in there that generates heat.
I don't understand thermodynamics, but I'm still cool with thermoses. Like,
I gotcha.
I think that really, like, the true culprit here, the one we really need to get down and dirty with, is just figure out why. I don't know. I can't. I don't know what else there is to say. Like, thermoses are high, you know.
I see. Yeah.
But why don't they have like the thermos for cold drinks? Do they have those? Like everyone talks about hot thermoses. What about cold thermoses?
I think thermoses will also keep things cold.
Hot.
Yeah,
damn.
because isn't that what the swell bottle does or something like that?
I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I'm 21. And it took me 21 years to finally use the thermos. So.
This is the College Gamers Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the College Gamers Podcast. Starting it off, professional as always.
Second week in a row.
That is Adam, but we are joined today by the one, the only, Mr. Ryan Murphy from the Gamers Inn Podcast. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How is
Happy to be here.
Yeah, how's your week going?
Week's going pretty good. You know, it's Saturday. I'm gonna break the fourth wall. Yeah, it's Saturday. Everybody, deal with it. Yeah, I'm just excited that it's Saturday. It's been one of those weeks where it's just like, okay, Saturday. Thank the gaming gods. It's Saturday.
Yes.
Even though I haven't been able to play any video games, I played like 2 turns of Fire Emblem, and I was like, oh, Paw Patrol isn't as interesting as it used to be. Screaming baby. So.
Yeah, it is. It has been a long week. You see, we both go to LSU, and next week is Mardi Gras break. So all the professors pack everything in this week because we don't have class next week. So it has been paper after presentation after homework. So it is. It's nice to just sit down and talk about video games for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Now Mardi Gras break, which is basically like spring break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sort of. I think we have an actual like full week spring break later in the semester.
Oh, is this spring break or Mardi Gras break?
This is Mardi Gras. We get till I think for LSU we get till Wednesday at 12:30, and if you have a class that starts at 12:30 or any class after that, you have to go to a class Wednesday. Like for me, I have a class at 3:30 to 4:30 Wednesday, so I don't get Wednesday off.
Yeah, LSU does a weird thing where they give us half days.
That's nice of them. Half day. I don't think I got any half days unless there was like a really bad snowstorm when I was in university and college. But I think that we never got Mardi Gras time off either. We got you get your classic holidays like Easter and stuff, but then we had what they were called reading weeks, where you didn't do any reading. You didn't go to class. It was really weird, but it was nice. It was a nice break.
That does sound nice. You see, see, we're in Louisiana, so our version of a snowstorm is just a little bit of snow or ice on the ground, and everyone panics, and the whole city shuts down. Everyone huddles in and waits for the storm to pass over.
Yeah, we don't normally shut down. We, although we've been having a lot of rain, like all the snow that we had last weekend, which was the weekend I moved, which was fantastic. Just like, I don't know, maybe 2 feet of snow. And then basically this weekend we had maybe 30 millimeters of rain, which has just washed it all away. So that's fantastic. My back thanks you, rain. You're a week late, but yeah.
Better late than
Weather.
never.
That's how you know the podcast is on the right track. I thought this was a video game podcast. Let's talk more about the weather. So no, I can't do it. I can't do it. No more weather talk. What are we doing here?
Yeah, well, you want to get into the news? Let's just do that.
And now for the news.
It's fresh off the presses. Exactly. Like, they were hot. I had to handle them with oven mitts so I didn't burn my fingers.
With that Black Magic thermos.
Exactly. At the beginning of the week, we take the news, we put it in a thermos, and it's ready to go by the end of the weekend. It's great. It's really great. So let's start off today with Bethesda has announced it's working on 3 new projects that are being described as classically Bethesda, which can only mean one thing: large scale fantasy or post-apocalyptic.
Oh, that's right.
Which is really exciting. They said that 2 of them are classically Bethesda, and then the third one will be mobile. And there's, they didn't really give us a lot to think, like, the chew on. They were like, oh, we're just working on 3 things. It's really cool that they're continuing to go to mobile with the success of Fallout Shelter.
I think.
Yeah.
The cool thing about developing on mobile, like Bethesda did it first and probably did it the best, where they announced Fallout 4, but then they were like, but right now you can play this free to play set in Fallout mobile game that will keep you excited about the Fallout universe, because, we haven't been to the Fallout universe in the last 5 years. So it's nice to revisit it, even if it is a small mobile app. But that mobile app was fun. And then you look at what Nintendo's doing now, and I'm a Nintendo fanboy, so I apologize or give a high five to your listeners out there. But with what Nintendo's doing with Fire Emblem Heroes, with Super Mario Run, especially with Fire Emblem Heroes, where they're announcing and releasing this app and then saying, this will keep you, excited for the franchise, but then you get to buy 2 or 3 large scale products over the next year and a half. I think that's a great way to keep your fan base interested, especially with the way games are coming out these days. So if Bethesda has Elder Scrolls 6 coming in a year, 2 years, but releases a mobile app in the universe of Elder Scrolls in a year to kind of like, we've announced Elder Scrolls 6, but here's something you can play right now. I think that's just a great way, so we don't have to wait. It doesn't feel like you have to wait so long. You're still enjoying that universe. I don't know. I'm glad too. Bethesda, like a big company like that, you kind of expect them to be like, yeah, we're just going to make big games and that's it. But it's exciting that they're still doing mobile.
Yeah, that is really cool. And like you said, I think that was the most amazing press conference ever, where they just announced Fallout 4 and then on top of that, Fallout Shelter right there in everyone's laps. I thought that was really awesome. And I really hope for the same thing for Elder Scrolls. If they announced an Elder Scrolls game, like mobile game, what do you think they could do? Because, Fallout has these shelters. I thought that was really cool. But in Skyrim, if they go for something like Fallout Shelter, would you be having a keep or something, and you have to send your little Dovahkiins or something like, go shout at these people for me for 3 hours?
As long as when you send them out, they go faster raw, and then you get to hear that every time they go out. I think that would be, they could do something like that, like sort of a you're a dungeon lord. I don't think they necessarily. Bethesda is like an interesting company where they're not like Activision. They're not like, I can't think of a better example, but they're not like Activision where we have to release this in the same vein every 5 years to make sure people know that we're still making those types of games. I think if they're doing a mobile title set in the Elder Scrolls universe, they might do something a little different. Maybe it's not a management sim, but it's more of a, I don't know. It's maybe what would be really cool would be someone like what's that? The Thieves Guild. Like you're running the Thieves Guild.
Oh, that would be cool.
And you have to like recruit thieves and send them out. It's the same quest system, but it'd be more about like equipping your dudes, making sure they have all the proper thieving stuff. I don't know. Like they could have some fun there.
What about a dungeon crawler? Kind of seems like it fit well. Maybe like a roguelike, where you have your little Nord dude, or I guess you can pick a race, and you can pick up loot and things and unlock abilities. You die, you restart. That kind of sounds appropriate, especially for how many dungeons we had in Skyrim.
Yeah. I think they have a lot of options, and I would love to see Bethesda do something outside of Elder Scrolls or Fallout, because I think when they went outside of the Elder Scrolls universe and created Fallout 3, a lot of people were happy with that. So to see them do something unique, especially with maybe just their mobile title or their other large scale product, that would be really cool to see that, I think.
I bet one of these 3 projects are VR, because we've seen they have a little Doom VR thing going on right now. That's Bethesda, right? I'm like 90% sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that was an embarrassing question. And then Fallout 4 is also getting VR support.
No, is it really?
Yeah. I think it's more like you click and that's where your character moves.
Yeah, I think that's most VR. That's what Grand Theft Auto does.
Yeah, but I would like to see because what I keep saying is VR isn't really going to truly take off mainstream until it gets AAA support from a big company, and it'd be really cool if Bethesda led that charge with a game that feels like a good VR game. Because right now, a lot of the games, especially on Steam, they feel they still look rough, and I understand the technology isn't quite there, so you can't put.
Oh yeah, technology's got a while to go.
You can't put really a 4K game in VR without being really nauseous. But it'd be really cool.
You'd also need a computer that could play 8K games, right? The biggest barrier to entry with VR is that the headsets cost a lot of money. The computers to run them cost a lot of money. And I have a headset that I have access to, and I've played around with it. And you're right, the games are very cool. The experience is, whoa, this is amazing. But it's not, especially for those folks that don't have a gaming computer, it's not that great to want to spend $2-3 grand to go into VR. And even Fallout VR is just VR in an existing game that you played 2 years ago, right? So I think the key to VR is twofold. They have to get the headset price down, and they also have to develop unique experiences for VR. Like Fallout VR is just it's interesting, but it's not the be all end all of VR. So I don't know, like it's gonna take a lot for VR to really hit its stride. But I think the first and foremost, the price of the headsets need to come down.
Yeah.
And yeah,
exactly. Well, let's move on to Nintendo Switch, Adam. It was all Nintendo Switch and Mass Effect this week. That's what it felt like.
It's almost like the Switch comes out Friday or something.
No, no, I don't believe you.
So yeah, we get some Switch here now. The first is good news, and the second is unfortunate bad news. But right now, let's focus on the good. So the Switch is getting, we get an announcement for another first-party launch game called Snipper Clips, I believe it is. This is another title that'll be available on the day of the launch, along with a bunch of others. It's a puzzle game. You'll be able to get it through the eShop. It's about 1.6 gigabytes, I believe. And not only that, but a demo of it will also be available on the same day that you can download for free. So you can try the game like before you buy the actual one, which I really like that.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
And then, so yeah, this is the latest one of its launch title lineups. And the games that come out on the launch day of the Switch include this one, Skylanders Imaginators 1-2 Switch, which I believe, does that one come with all Switches?
Yeah, I think the 1-2 Switch is kind of the I noticed that with Nintendo consoles, they always have one game that comes with the console that kind of shows off what it can do. I think 1-2 Switch is that game.
It does show off what the Joy-Cons can do. Like that's its major highlight. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to play 1-2 Switch, but it's that game that if people are complaining about the $90, especially here in Canada, the $90 controllers, the Joy-Cons, they say, oh, but 1-2 Switch shows off what they can do. But 1-2 Switch isn't packaged in with the Switch. It's actually an additional $50 game. Like it's a budget priced title, but it's not included in the package, which is interesting because it's one of the first Nintendo consoles to not have a pack-in, which is unfortunate.
Oh, I really thought it was going to
I remember the Wii U came with something called like Nintendo Land or something like that.
Yeah. And then the Wii, I think, had Wii Sports.
I think that's was
it
that
did,
launch?
yeah.
Or did that? Yeah, that
Yeah,
was launch.
yeah, because it showed off all like you could like bowl and like
Oh yeah.
all the motion controls. Looking at these games,
Yeah, I don't think the GameCube had one. The GameCube was probably you just had the sole purple lunchbox. But yeah, the Wii and the Wii U both had pack-ins for sure.
I got you. I noticed that Binding of Isaac has been delayed, which is interesting.
Game industry's favorite word. There we go.
Yeah, delayed. But it's really interesting because just this week, a friend showed me Binding of Isaac for the first time, and I'm suddenly not surprised why they delayed this. It's a pretty dark game. I don't know, Ryan, have you ever played Binding of Isaac?
I have, and they have a really interesting history when it comes to Nintendo because when it originally came out, they were trying to get it to be released on the 3DS, and Nintendo basically said like, nah, don't worry about it. We don't want the game on here because it has a lot of like religious undertones and in a negative light. Like the way it starts is basically your mom thinks God tells you, or your mom gets told by God that you're evil and that you must be punished, in which she locks you in a basement that is filled with demons, and then you have to kill them with your tears.
Yes.
That's the plot.
It's a very intense game.
It is, and it's weird, and you get power-ups where you shoot like pee tears and like blood tears. It's someone should check up on the guy who made that, especially since he keeps releasing it. It's kind of, and it's interesting, like this one, Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus, which I mean maybe that's why, but yeah, I think it's also a full price title. Like it's expensive. It's not like the original release was just kind of like a digital download type thing. So I wonder what kind of new content is in there.
Yeah.
Because I really like Binding of Isaac. It's a lot of fun. It reminds me of the first Zelda game. It's very much set up like one of the first Zelda games. So a lot of people enjoyed it.
I gotcha. Well, do you think maybe they're hesitant about releasing it on the Switch because Nintendo has this very family-friendly theme about them?
I don't think so. I think I've always stood by my idea that when it comes to a launch of a console, a lot of companies will take risks because if you're launching with a new console, there's a good chance that people are going to be like, well, if I'm spending $400 on this new unit, I better buy more than one game. Because everyone walking in to buy Zelda and the Switch, which is what I'm doing, are going to look at this other list and say like, okay, what do I want to play when I need a break from Zelda? And if you look at that list, there's a lot of like small indie titles that you can pick up right from the eShop. And Binding of Isaac it's kind of unfortunate it's missing launch because it's one of the most unique offerings on the Switch that is very replayable because it's a roguelike, right? So if you played 20 hours of it on Steam, the chances of you enjoying yourself another 20 hours of it on the Switch is pretty high, right?
Yeah.
Because it's that type of game. So it is unfortunate that it got delayed, but it's had a weird development cycle where it was coming on the 3rd, then it wasn't, then it was. I don't know. It could be just like a cert thing, maybe. Like they put more focus into the other games that they have at launch, and they couldn't certify Binding of Isaac. I don't know.
I gotcha. That's really interesting.
But they do have a good number of other launch games at least from this list.
Yeah. Any other ones you're excited for? I mean, Legend of Zelda is the obvious one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like World of Goo. I haven't played World of Goo in a very long time, and I played it on the Wii, so it had the sort of pointer controls. I think it'd be really cool to play World of Goo on, like, I know it came out on iPad and I could probably load it up on my iPad right now. I think I might have even bought it there, but it would be really neat to play World of Goo again. It's been a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excited about that.
I also noticed Little Inferno is also on this list, and I remember playing that game a few years ago on mobile as well. And that's a fun game because you just burn things, and I always enjoyed that. I don't know, I'm a pyromaniac, so maybe that's it.
It was a weird game. It was that game's super weird, and it's not really a game. You just kind of like touch things and they burn. I shouldn't say it's not a game. It is still a game, but
yeah,
the narrative of it was very dark and very like you keep burning things and polluting the environment. And I don't know. I can't remember like you would just burn the most weirdest stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you had to burn combinations to unlock levels. Like, am I remembering it correctly?
Yeah, you would, if I remember right, you burn things to earn money, which you then go to a catalog and you can order new things to burn. And
Okay,
and then yeah, you could burn things in combinations to unlock achievements and new items. It was really weird, but for some reason I played it for longer than I probably should have. It was a really cool game. Let's move on to someone nervous news about the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, this is the bad news of the Switch regarding this, and this raises questions for people like me who pre-ordered it, because what it is the Nintendo Switch JoyCon connections have had some issues found in some of the pre-release hardware. So this was mainly prominent in the left-hand Joy-Con of the Switch, but it's also in the right one. So what was happening is some of these people got pre-release hardware, and then this one guy put out a video of it on the article. I would recommend watching the video because you can visually see what the problem is. So the way they found this was in the pre-release Switch gear, they were playing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and what would happen is there'd be some kind of connection issue with the movement. So Link would be moving one way, you tried to move another way, but then Link would just keep going in that same direction. Now they couldn't show this because they can't show
the game.
Yeah, they can't show Zelda footage right now. But what they did in the video was they went to the menu where you sync the Joy-Con, and you can see like the motions where he moves it. Like you see that right there. Yeah, he'd twirl the stick in a circle, and you can see it going around in a circle. But what he would do is he would kind of put his hand in the way or cup his hand around the Joy-Con, and the signal would seem either laggy or stop altogether, and then he would put it behind his back, and then the signal would just freeze altogether.
Watching, interesting.
Yeah, so it would so this kind of raises some full questions, because they don't know what's causing this, and they don't know the full extent of it, because what this also is there's a green light on the Joy-Cons that shows yes, they're connected to the system. That light was unchanged, so it's not necessarily like the direct connection to the Switch.
Yeah. Ryan, you were gonna say something?
Well, the interesting thing is, like, this is very unfortunate for Nintendo, because this is one of probably going to be the most popular ways to control your game, which is taking the setting up in tabletop mode, taking the sticks out or the Joy-Cons and using them in both your hands in a portable fashion, right? Which is the main reason people are picking this thing up, because they want a portable / home console from Nintendo. And I for one hope it's not like a manufacturing defect that they would need to do a recall if they're experiencing that, and hope it's just like a software thing. Like, we already know that they're going to have a day one patch for a lot of things, including the eShop and the ability to connect to Wi-Fi that has a security, like a hotel Wi-Fi. So one can hope that they're going to address that in the day one patch or soon after. But according to this article here, it says Nintendo is looking into the issue, so that's good. I was worried that they hadn't even acknowledged it yet. But, I mean, of all the ways you're going to control your Switch, and this isn't me doing damage control for Nintendo, but I do want to... They're obviously doing this for review purposes, so they have to look at everything. But between the three of us, how would you rank the way you're going to play the Switch? Like, where does this control method fall for you guys, basically?
Well, really, I'd say this is the top way to control it, because it's kind of the default controller. So it's all, I think the games are all going to be kind of designed for this type of controller. That's really it. I mean, I guess second would be, I believe, a GameCube controller. They're going to have GameCube controllers for it, right?
Yeah, because like example would be competitive Smash Bros. Every serious Smash Bros. Player uses an actual GameCube controller. Like, people hated the Wii U, but they bought it and the adapter so that they could hook up a real GameCube controller for competitive Smash Bros.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you say, yeah, of course the Joy-Cons are the base control method, but the way they've taken them out of the system and using them sort of like in your hands, I don't know. It doesn't rank as high for me, but it's still alarming. I kind of really hope that it's just like a software thing, because, man, nothing worse for Nintendo right now if this is a a larger issue.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is these controllers by themselves are relatively small, and so maybe because of their size, they might have had to use a weaker transmitter or something because they're small,
Maybe.
so they had to use something smaller and then therefore weaker. So there is there's that. That was my first thought, and because he puts it behind his back, which leads me to think, oh, the signal can't get through his body, and they're small, and that's my kind of trail of thought with this.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then a software isn't going to fix it. But
No, you're right. But I mean, hopefully people aren't doing parlor tricks with their Joy-Cons. Like, look, I can do it without looking at the controller. Like, I would also hope that this would have came up in testing, like at Nintendo, and the fact that it's not widespread, but certain people are having issues. And I've seen some people, like the Giant Bomb staff, like some of them are having issues, and other people are having issues only when they really tried to reproduce it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is alarming, and it's really unfortunate for Nintendo because you kind of hope when a new console comes out that people just have, quote unquote nice things to say about it. And when you're right, like half of the primary controller that ships in the box doesn't work as intended. And you're right, like there are going to be games that use that control method where you have the Joy-Cons in your hands, like ARMS, for example, is that control method, the main control method for that game. And could you could imagine, like if the buttons aren't responding, like that's a big deal, especially for a competitive fighter, right? So
yeah, and that's frustrating, especially if you did something and then there's that lag there where it just doesn't connect all together. Yeah,
and this also just isn't limited to the left one. Like they were having issues with the right one too, so it's the entire controller. Like it's not just one.
It's interesting.
We also do have a tweet from like one guy tweeted out, isn't it Jason? I can't say the name. It's spelled SCHREIER. It was on the article. He tweeted out, "Yep, my left Joy-Con desynchronizes as I'm playing. Gonna be a big problem if they can't fix this with a firmware update." So that'd be really, really unfortunate if like any kind of if like this goes out in release hardware and they can't fix it with a software update, and they'd have to essentially recall everything and then remanufacture it. Like that would be a huge setback.
I gotcha. And maybe if this doesn't stay an issue, do you think we're either gonna get like upgraded? It's possible we're just get an upgraded controller that maybe has better connection. Maybe I don't know.
I could think that
if they can't fix this in a firmware update, it's their options. There's no good option for Nintendo.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it is concerning, especially because I'm sure everyone wants this to be a success for Nintendo after the Wii U.
Oh yeah.
After that mess, because I want this to be a success, so Nintendo's around in the future. Yeah, two failed consoles would be really bad for them.
Yeah, and what's really most alarming is they don't know the extent of it, because like this could just not be a body part. Like what if you're on the other side of your couch, or when you take it outside, like if a tree's in the way, or maybe even the wind could be a factor. I mean, I hope not, but they don't know the extent of that. And that kind of solution, if a firmware can't fix it, is it would boil down to you have to have a direct line of sight to the Switch, which undermines the point of it. The point of it is to be mobile and be in any kind of multi-environment. Yeah. So if you have to have a direct line of sight, that undermines that.
Well, I could argue that in most situations you have a line of sight with the controllers to the console because you're looking at a screen.
Yeah,
that's just a thought, but do we know the range of the Joy-Cons? Like how far away you can be without disconnecting or having latency?
I would assume it would have at least a decent range, because I know with the Wii U you can't go far away with the gamepad, even though you can see the game on the screen of the gamepad, but you still can't go far away. Yeah. So maybe at least a decent range with the Joy-Cons, I would guess.
10, 15, 20 feet. I'm
Something
not sure.
Like that.
Because like if they have a short range, maybe there's some correlation. I don't know. But let's just move on. Good luck, Nintendo. I'm sure y'all can figure this out.
Please don't screw the people like me who pre-ordered your lovely product.
And we'll know next week, right? By next weekend, we'll know if there's a problem still.
Yeah, next weekend I'll have mine, and I'll see what's going on there.
I'll try to contact you, like, hey Adam, we're gonna record soon. You're gonna be here, and I'm just never gonna hear from you because you're playing your Switch. Yeah, let's move on to Overwatch because this past week has been really big. We've gotten some teasers for the upcoming, what everyone is assuming, an upcoming new character, the 24th character to be added to the game. So what we've gotten is over the past 2 weeks, actually I think over this month, because there was some hype about a character in the Overwatch world called Doomfist, who is kind of, from what I understand, he's kind of the big bad guy. His weapon is just this awesome super gauntlet that you actually see in the first trailer we got for Overwatch, where some of the characters are fighting in this museum. And it was Reaper and Widowmaker who are trying to retrieve the gauntlet from this museum. It's, I don't know why they keep a super weapon in the museum, but so this week we got this fake interview with a character from Overwatch called Effie Oladi. I don't know. I'm not good at pronouncing names.
Yeah, we're butchering names again.
Yep.
It's a fake name, so I mean.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm sure someone is named Effie Oladeli. But in this case, it is a fictional character, so I think we're fine. It'll be fine. Blizzard might write a separate interview about how this podcast has butchered this person's name, but it'll be fine.
Be okay with that. That's
that would be good. Hey, any press is good press, right?
Exactly. But so this character is this 11-year-old robotics artificial intelligence genius, and in this interview, she's talking about how she wants to create robots to keep the world safe. And in this interview, she mentions OR-15s, which are protective units. Now, later that week, we got a tweet from Overwatch talking about breaking news happening in the Numbani airport, where 3 OR-15s were attacked by an unknown assailant, and it showed this image of the attacker starting zone, where there are 2 robots on the floor, like they've always obviously been destroyed, and there's a third one in a crater in the wall, and this crater is massive.
Ooh.
And shortly after, that scene appeared in the PTR, so it affected in-game.
Ooh.
And in that same map, Doomfist is in the payload for that map, which you're trying to deliver it to the end, to win the game. But it's been broken into, and Doomfist is missing. So we're hoping. So that everyone's thinking, oh, it has to be Doomfist. It's super exciting. But there's also some other theories where, because this 11-year-old genius is wants to create robots to protect people, there's also a theory floating around that our next character will be this robot tank, because at the moment we've all played a little bit of Overwatch. I know, Adam, you watched a little bit, right? Yeah, but Ryan, have you played Overwatch?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah, for sure.
just making sure. But right now Reinhardt is kind of the tank.
He's got the giant shield, right? Who's not going to pick him when they're in a pinch, right? I'm more of a Roadhog guy, but it's been a while.
Yeah, Roadhog. I love me some Roadhog. I feel like a bullet sponge, and this makes me feel good. But,
and he can hook people. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Now I want to play Overwatch.
You can hook people from across the universe, that kind of thing. But they're hoping to, my hope, and they were talking about this on Overwatchers. They made some really good points about this always Reinhardt comp, and they want to break that up, because Reinhardt is a must choose, especially if you want a good push, because that shield is unreplaceable. Even they reworked Diva's shield that kind of worked the same way, but Reinhardt, just no one can replace Reinhardt. And I think that'd be really good, because Blizzard, from my experience, Blizzard hates must picks. They want players to be able to play any character they want and still be viable. So it'd be really cool to give this other character who would also be a viable tank, especially in a pinch, like you said, Ryan. He's if you're stuck, if the payload isn't moving, and you pick Reinhardt, he's like a bulldozer. Like Roadhog he's a good tank, and he's good for, like, I can just like sit my ass on the checkpoint or like the payload, and no one's gonna move me, because I can just sit there and take bullets, and if they get me low, I'll just heal myself, and I'll just stay there. And like someone who's at a party and won't go away, and you try to usher them out, and they just sit there. And so it'd be really cool to see if they could change up that meta.
Yeah, no, Blizzard's never one to let their games stagnate, and Overwatch seems to be the one suffering from the least amount of updates, because Blizzard again loves to take their time, and they haven't been around long enough. Overwatch hasn't been around long enough as Heroes. We were actually discussing this on the Gamers Inn, and how Blizzard just is basically a perpetual update machine with all their properties that they're coming out. At some point, they're not going to release any new games. They're just going to keep updating their platforms that they have.
Yeah.
And with Overwatch, they have the biggest turnaround time for new heroes to sort of keep the game fresh and interesting. Like, it's been around every 3 to 4 months for a new hero, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And I know they're free, and I know they're supported by these in-game events where you buy new costumes, and development time certainly goes into creating those costumes, but they don't change the game in any huge way. So you made your Winston look like a Yeti. I mean, that doesn't change up the meta of the game. It just makes you put a Yeti in your game. I guess that is pretty cool. But I think that with the way you're describing that they're going to add a new tank, the game needs it, and they're addressing that in a way that I mean, the coolest thing about this for me is that this is the biggest hint to seeing actual story in game, represented in the map, supported via the website and Twitter and all that. And I love that. That's my favorite part about Overwatch, is these small slivers of story. And I'm craving more of it. I want more story of Overwatch in Overwatch. I don't want to have to read comics. I don't want to have to, cinematics are cool and all, but I would love to play the story. And if they can sort of capture the awesomeness that was the Junkrat's Revenge or whatever PvE brawl in some fashion with this dude Doomfist threat, that would be amazing. I would love to see. I would pay for a PvE expansion in Overwatch, like a little episodic thing. That would be so cool. And it doesn't even have to unlock. It could just unlock skins, like for Hearthstone. When you buy an adventure, you unlock cards. I don't even need them to unlock heroes. I just want the paid content maybe to unlock like an alternate skin for a character that was featured in the story. I will pay for that. I don't want to pay for loot boxes anymore. I will pay for PvE content. I'm fine with that.
That would be really cool, and especially if the way Hearthstone, like you were talking about Hearthstone's PvE content. It'd be cool if we got the same thing. They could do something like I don't know, like Doomfist's Revenge or something, or League of Doomfist as examples, where you pay $20 and you get this PvE almost like Wings, except each one is one of those PvE scenarios, and like over a few weeks they slowly release the PvE content and the story missions. And I think that'd be really cool, because really, you have the story of Overwatch, because well, these are bad characters, these are good characters, and we know there was Omnic War, I think it's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, the Omnic War.
Yeah, but we don't really know very much about that. And we get some pieces of story also in the trailers for the heroes, like the Bastion short. Oh my gosh, that was a tearjerker. Holy cow! But okay, all right. How would you feel if they just made like a 20-minute Overwatch movie, like small TV show kind of thing?
I mean that would be interesting. I think that again, like I want solid production on Overwatch story, and I feel like the piecemeal stuff we're getting outside the game is interesting, but it's not exactly what I want. A short, like the shorts that they put out, again, like they put the shorts out for major announcements, and I think they're great, and they expand the story a bit, but it seems like a lot of work put into something that isn't giving me something in the game that I want. I don't know. I sound like kind of a butt saying that I don't like. I love the cinematics, but I want to see more done in game. You can't even watch the cinematics in game, which seems like if you had like a hero viewer, you could watch, say for example, the Boop girl. What's her name?
Sombra.
Sombra, thank you. In her character sheet, you should be able to look at what her history is and then see that cinematic and kind of explain it a little better. But yeah, if we could get like a TV show or a 20-minute introduction to a PvE brawl that sort of explains the story behind the Omnic War or something, like that would be really cool.
But I understand what you're saying, where you want to experience that story like personally, like you want to be there for it.
Yeah, I mean, Tracer in the cinematics feels like a character that I would love to play. But then when you play her, you get such a small snippet of her personality when you're playing her. And I get it because it's a multiplayer game, it's a multiplayer focused, and I'm just the type of game. I'm a different type of gamer. I'm a gamer who grew up with single player experiences that were just solely story. Like we're looking at Legend of Zelda coming out next week. I cannot wait. Horizon Zero Dawn next week. I'm pretending it doesn't exist because I can't afford. I don't have time to play 2 large open world games, but those are my jams.
Just don't sleep.
And then when Blizzard creates these great characters and chooses not to focus on the story in the game, that really bums me out. Because they've put so much work into these characters, and I know the story's out there, but I want to do it like I do with every other game. I want to play the story,
And they have, because they have these characters broken up into tanks, healers, damage dealers. They almost could do something like WoW raids, like how we need 3 tanks. Let's get a Reinhardt, and we need some healers. Mercy, Lucio would be like a good group healer. Yeah, would that also be a viable way to experience content? Like Doomfist is the one big bad guy who you have to fight, and like the big platform you have to like avoid things, kind of like World of Warcraft. Don't stand in the poop. World of Warcraft. Yeah.
Like the brawls, like the PvE brawls, where you would have Doomfist would be the boss, and you similar to Junkrat's Revenge, you would do it that way, and it's you and 4 and 3 friends playing a character, and there's unique dialogue for playing it, and if you pick the right comp, maybe it has a dialogue that goes back and forth that makes sense. That's the other problem with Overwatch, is that they don't want to restrict you to using specific characters. I know they did with the Junkrat's Revenge or whatever brawl, but they don't want to restrict you to using specific characters that would work for the story, because one of the issues people have with Overwatch is like, well, yeah, they set up this great Tracer Widowmaker rivalry, but then in game you can play on the same team.
Yeah.
So the game, the main game mechanics break the attention to detail, right? So with these brawls, it'd be really cool to have a Doomfist brawl that is a Doomfist dungeon, but then, if I can pick someone who wouldn't be fighting Doomfist, like that's going to feel really out of character, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea. Like Doomfist shouldn't be a character. If he's a big baddie, I think he should be like a boss. If they let us play as Doomfist, that would be kind of weird. Yeah, because isn't he OP? Like, isn't that the whole point of the giant hammer hand thing he has?
Yeah. Yeah, the big crater in the wall might assume he's OP.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to some Halo news here. It's it doesn't sound big to some people. I think it's a big deal that Halo 5 did not have split screen, but this week we got from Microsoft saying that having no split screen was a mistake, and that in the future Halo games will have split screen, like going forward.
Thank goodness.
And I think removing in the first place was a mistake, because maybe personally, throughout my childhood, me and my brother would just grind through legendary difficulty, just split screen. We stay up all night, and I feel like part of the Halo experience is sitting there and playing with your friends, together, And there are other ways to get around this where, I think you can still bring Xboxes together and connect them and play like on 2 different TVs.
I think, yeah.
It's called like it's called like Link or something. But
something like that.
Yeah. But I think it was a mistake to get rid of split screen. And
It's a tough one, and I think this being the College Gamers podcast, split screen is super important because you're in an environment where you're constantly around your friends. Like right now, split screen for me, I could take it or leave it. When Halo 5 came out and didn't have split screen, like I can appreciate as a fan of the series and as someone who's used split screen in the past. I have 3 brothers. We all gamed together when we were kids. Not having split screen on Halo 5 didn't bother me in the moment, but I can understand why it was hurtful for a lot of gamers out there. And the fact that they're bringing it back is them, acknowledging the fact that Halo was a series that was that really thrived on split screen. That's what made that game really great.
Yeah.
And adding it back in for Halo 6, just because we're, 15, 20 years later from Halo 1, doesn't mean you have to like leave the tenets of the franchise behind. You can bring back split screen, and I think a lot of people understand that split screen's hard because you have to like kind of basically create a whole other engine because you're rendering 2 different viewpoints. So you're going to see some dip in quality, but I think people understand that. I mean, everybody won't understand that, but most people will understand that's how split screen works. So I'm glad they're bringing it back, and it's interesting of them to acknowledge it in such a odd press cycle. Like Halo 6 is probably another year and a half away.
Yeah.
And E3's in June. It's mid-February right now. Good on them for saying this and kind of like putting their foot down and saying, "Yep, it's coming back." So I guess it's a dice. So it's still kind of a interesting time frame for them to be announcing this.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. It's a really good thing to point out. They don't have a game releasing anytime soon, Halo wise. So that's interesting. Yeah. We're kind of running a little short on time, so you just want to hop into the interview. We're gonna interview you, by the way.
Oh.
Kind of get you. Oh, well, why this guy on the show? You're not just some random guy we pulled off the streets. Like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? So,
Cool.
kind of like explore you as a gamer and as a podcaster.
Sure.
So let's just get started. When did kind of the obvious question, I guess, is when did you first start playing video games?
I started to play video games when I was a kid. I can't remember how young, but it was basically I got a Super NES for either Christmas. It might have been Christmas from my parents, and then my nana saw that we loved it so much because at that point I had 2 brothers and we were all playing, and it kept us quiet, which was nice for my parents. But she ended up getting us an NES as well, which at the time would have been the older console that came out. And that's sort of where I got my start, which was with Nintendo games. And the Super NES holds a lot of like special memories for me, like Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart. Just being able to play games with my brothers. Like I grew up in the middle of nowhere. We didn't have our nearest neighbor was the farm across the street. The nearest kid that you'd play with was at school on Monday. So it was video games was something we did when we didn't want to go outside all day. We wanted to be inside and play some video games. So it was important. It was an important time in my life to be playing games. I really enjoyed when I was a kid. Played a lot of video games.
Awesome. What is your preferred platform for playing games?
Right now it's anything Nintendo. Again, like I'm one of those gamers that find it very hard to let go, and Nintendo is one of those companies that I know personally has done some things that have left gamers kind of going, okay, I'm just going to play my PC and my Xbox or my PC and my PlayStation.
Yeah.
But I'm sort of like, I don't fall in line with one specific platform. Like Nintendo is my go-to. Like the Switch is coming out next week. I'm taking the day off. I want it day one. I ordered online. It's causing me a lot of stress because I keep thinking if I'm just going to sit at the door waiting for the Switch to come and then it's not going to get here till Monday, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually Nintendo, anything Nintendo really is my preferred platform. I play everything though. I've gotten to the point in my life where gaming's my hobby. I don't drink a lot. I don't smoke. I don't have expensive hobbies except for video games. I don't have expensive money holes. So I just I have a little bit of everything, and I love my exclusives, my PlayStation exclusives, my Xbox exclusives, and PC. I love the Blizzard games. You kind of have to work being on the A Move network.
Yeah.
I joke around about that, but it's true. They make you sign a contract. So.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, the Switch is stressing me out too, because apparently there's a I pre-ordered it at my local GameStop, and evidently there's a 48-hour policy. If I don't pick it up in 48 hours, then if someone walks in and says, "Hey, do y'all have a Switch?" Yeah, they can sell mine, and then I'm screwed.
Wow, really? So you don't think you'll be able to go in and get it day one, or?
Oh, I'm getting that one way or another. As long as I get it Friday or Saturday, it's mine, and you better believe I'm getting that.
Just skip school.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I've graduated now, so I can say it out loud without getting. I mean, you're not gonna get in trouble. It's school, right? I get meaning unless your parents find out and they're paying for your education, that could be an issue. But for me, it was like we'd skip class all the time to play video games. Sorry, Mom, but yeah.
Yeah. My mom listens to the show, so Mom, if you're listening, officially, we did not skip school. That's the word.
Technically, it's not until next week, so you haven't skipped school.
It's true. Yeah, exactly. All right. So, all right. The question is, what games are you looking forward to most in 2017? But I'm gonna make it hard for you and say excluding Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, because that's gonna be really exciting. Is there anything else that you're hyped for this year?
I'll make it a little more difficult. Like I'll just exclude, I just finished writing a love letter to Nintendo with the last question, so I won't answer it with any Nintendo game. But I think the game I'm most looking forward to in 2017 from it's tough, right? There's just so many games that come out in a year, and right now it's February, and a lot of the games that we might be most hyped for will be announced in June. But for me, I think when it comes to 2017, I'm really stoked to see more God of War on PlayStation 4. I don't know if they've confirmed it's 2017, but I am looking forward to seeing more of that game. Destiny 2 has me kind of interested. The Rise of Iron expansion really kind of left me. It was that expansion where I was like, oh, okay, wait, Destiny probably maybe isn't the game that I want it to be. And I'm hoping Destiny 2 creates a game that I truly really want to get into. And yeah, I really want to see Destiny made into a game that more than just the grinders get into. Because I usually fall out of Destiny whenever there's new content, like after the first week. And Destiny 2, I'm hoping is their idea come to life. And there's it's not official, but there's talk that it is coming out in 2017.
I gotcha. Just kind of curious, like what thing in particular do you think would make Destiny 2 the game that you're hoping it would be?
More PvE content again, just more story. In the original game, the story in the main campaign was interesting, but then they came out with, a secondary campaign that continued the story, but still didn't address some of the bigger questions in the original one, but was still felt like, okay, they're building on this world. And then the next expansion came out and it's like, we're not even going to address anything that came before. There's just this new big baddie that you got to deal with. So can you help us out? And I'm hoping that they go back to the original story and start saying, no, this is a sci-fi world. Like, could you imagine Star Wars if Star Wars A New Hope came out and then they came out with Empire Strikes Back and it's or wait, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And then the second movie came out and they addressed it, and then the third one comes out and it doesn't really continue anything. It's just like a side story. Like them not taking the story seriously, and this will go back to our Overwatch talk. Them not taking the story seriously and running with it and really delivering on a sci-fi epic is super disappointing. And that was my biggest gripe with Rise of Iron. And I'm hoping with Destiny 2, they roll back and they kind of say, no, wait, we had an interesting story here. Let's actually tell it. That was my biggest problem with Destiny, is like they have a story there, but they're just not telling it. And they're telling it so cryptically and with like really small pieces of dialogue. it just got really frustrating, especially from a standpoint that I'm a huge story person, you know?
I got you. Yeah, I'm also that way. I like to explore a story, and it's part of my favorite parts of World of Warcraft, Overwatch. That's why I love Skyrim so much. I could just sit there and absorb all the story I wanted to.
Oh, I can't wait till I can get that on the Switch.
Yeah, I hope.
Oh yeah, you even made me like raise my hand and pledge to get Skyrim on.
Exactly.
Like we've got that on podcast. You're gonna hold me to that.
A blood oath. You have to like cut your palm and everything. So on the Gamers Inn, you mentioned you had some hands-on experience with the Nintendo Switch. Is that right?
I did. I went to I was in Toronto. I had an event there, and my co-host Jocelyn Moffat and I got our hands on the Switch, and it's a real thing. It feels good.
That's good.
It was weird. It was just weird, like to have your hands on a console. Like I've done pre-release stuff for video games and whatnot. I've had companies send review copies, and even got some stuff from Nintendo and Sony and whatnot, which is awesome. But actually getting to try pre-release hardware was really cool.
Like, oh, it's not a myth. It's actually here. But what were your thoughts of like when you were actually holding the console? What were like? Did you have any like anything come to mind initially when you first like actually put your hands on it?
The biggest thing for me was those Joy-Cons just look so small, and using those Joy-Cons for different styles of gameplay was really eye-opening. To be like, for example, playing arms with the Joy-Cons in either hand felt really good because you were really just using the shoulder buttons and then everything else was motion, and it felt really solid. It didn't feel like there was any lag in terms of the motion control. Like when you punched, it really felt like an extension of your arm hitting the other player in game, and playing that game with Jocelyn, who is notorious not necessarily notorious, but just really doesn't like motion control. And I get it. Motion control is one of those things that's very people could either land on either side. There's really no middle ground when it comes to motion control. You either like it or you despise it. And we were probably the most animated playing that game and had a great time playing ARMS on the Switch. And but then you play Snipper Clips, which has you moving at least with the way we were playing, having the Joy-Con on its side, and that felt kind of awkward. Like you wouldn't want to play very long like that. Like the 20-minute session that we had with Snipper Clips was really good because it gave you the idea of what playing was like. But because the control sticks are offset on the Joy-Cons, depending on whether you're using the left or the right, you're either going to have your one hand holding it like you normally would a controller, and then your other hand sort of, reaching over top of the Joy-Con, so you have your thumb on the control stick or the buttons. So it's hard to explain, but when you get your hands on it, you'll kind of understand. Like in a pinch, turning one controller into two is really cool, but probably not the way you're going to play for long periods of time. But again, in a pinch, really neat and a cool concept. But yeah, the console just felt really good. Like you take it out of the Switch dock and you start playing in handheld mode, and it's instantaneous and looks great, feels great. And it is truly taking the experience from the TV to your handheld. Like basically if you like the control, like the advertisement, like if you're playing on the TV and all of a sudden, I need to go to the park because my big dog that I'm not putting on a leash for some reason needs to go to the bathroom. I can take Zelda and play in the park while my dog hopefully doesn't chase after innocent bystanders. But yeah, it just feels really good.
Nice.
And it's super unique as well.
Yeah. So when you leave the dock, it is spontaneous. Like there's no, gotta reload the game.
It's instantaneous. Like it's to the point where you probably will want to pause it if you're playing and then sliding into the dock.
Yeah.
And the control, the advertisements are a little weird because it's like, who's gonna dock their console mid boss fight, right? It's really cool to have it switch to the TV as Link is running away from a boss, but no one's gonna do that. They're gonna pause their game and be like, okay, let's switch this up. Nothing works like it does in the commercials, but the way it does sort of change from handheld to console is very much so. It's almost instantaneous, and it's so little that you wouldn't notice it. To time it would just be, a worthless endeavor because it is so quick. And but no, it's not like a pause or a load or anything. It just does it.
That's really
I'd snap
cool.
my fingers if I could. I can't. That's one of the biggest problems I have covering the Nintendo Switch is I can't snap. Oh, see. Oh, wow. Okay. Sometimes.
It's a miracle.
Sometimes. It's a miracle. It's a Nintendo Switch miracle.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is pretty quick.
I gotcha. So, would that be? Would you say that's the thing like you're most excited about the console? If not, what are you most excited about?
I mean, obviously we'll cast Zelda aside because that's the easy answer. But I think I'm most excited about the fact that I don't do a lot of traveling for work, but sometimes I will travel, and being able to take a console experience because I don't have a gaming laptop. I'm a Mac user when it comes to my work. So like my podcasting, so I have a Mac laptop, which is underpowered, so I couldn't even play Blizzard games if I wanted to.
I understand your
so
struggle.
sometimes I'll just bring my iPad and or my iPhone or my 3DS for that matter, and it just doesn't feel like the type of experience I want to have. And the Switch, honestly, just being able to bring a console experience anywhere I want, that's the most exciting thing for me because now, as a Nintendo gamer, I only have to buy games for one system now. Which is also very exciting because sometimes you'd get a string of Wii U games and then you'd get a drought on your 3DS and then that would swap. And that was really frustrating because you wanted to enjoy experiences on both those platforms, but you were kind of held to whatever games were coming out. So knowing that we have one track from Nintendo coming out for the next 5 years is really exciting.
I gotcha. But what are you most nervous about for the Nintendo Switch? Is there anything that
Zelda?
I
don't want it to be bad. I want it to be really good, and I not just for me, but for everybody who really disliked Skyward Sword. Like in the moment, I kind of dug Skyward Sword. Probably one of the few people who did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was a 10 out of 10 game, but it was certainly not as bad as people made it out to be. And I'm just nervous that this Zelda, for Nintendo's sake, isn't going to live up to everybody's expectations because it's been, for some people, 10 years since we've had a great console Zelda game. And for me, it's been 5, which is, long enough in this day and age. Yeah. So I am kind of nervous about Zelda, but an excited nervous. And that's one of the feelings I had at the preview event where I was nervous to play Zelda. We got there, we couldn't get a ticket to play. They had given them all away because we were late. And I'm like, we don't need to play Zelda, right? Like, we don't need to play Zelda. I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to play it because I didn't want to. And then when I did play it, I was like, I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting either this amazing thing, but it's a great Zelda game, and we played something that we had seen many, many times. It was the Great Plateau. So I am nervous about Zelda, though. I know it's going to be great, but I'm still nervous about it.
That's understandable. But speaking of great games, what would you say is your most favorite game ever? If I told you have to go live on the island and can only play one game forever, what would you say that game would be, or your favorite game? It might be a hard decision.
Yeah, that's a tough one. But I mean, my favorite game ever. It's tough. Like I enjoy games very much in the moment. I don't have a game that I really go back to all the time. But I guess my favorite game ever, like a game like if let's put it this way, like rather than the desert island, look at it like you had to sit down and play a game for 24 hours. Gun to your head. What do you pick? It's like Super Mario 64. Like that's probably my favorite game ever that I could play. Although in a scenario where you have a gun to your head to play video games for 24 hours, like that sounds. Why do you have a gun to your head? That's terrible. But I think Super Mario 64 is probably the best game that I've ever played, and it stands up, which is another feather in its cap. Like, most people would say, "What's your favorite game ever?" And it changes every 5 years because the games don't stand the test of time. But Super Mario 64 is one of those early 3D games that still stands the test of time, which is go back and play any 3D platformer that came out around Super Mario 64, and they're all, kind of bad,
Yeah.
But at the moment, they were fantastic. So yeah, Super Mario 64. for. Probably a safe answer, but it's mine.
No, I got you. I understand that. Yeah, but do you have any games that like? Is there one game that you've always disliked? Like, is there one game that you never want to play again?
I don't think there's ever been. Well, okay.
Uh-oh.
So any of the Dark Souls games,
Oh,
I am terrible at those games, and I understand why people like them because they're like, I'm sitting over here playing checkers and they're all playing chess, right? You know, with Dark Souls, and the one I got into the most was Bloodborne. And I got maybe like 10 hours into it, but still, like, I just don't want to play those games anymore. I'm at a moment in my life where I have limited time to play video games, and the last thing I want to do is play something that's going to frustrate me and upset me and not have a relaxing moment.
yeah.
And I understand there are people out there that I get it. I totally understand. It's like Hearthstone. I understand why you guys like Hearthstone, but it's just not my kind of game. And it's the same with the Dark Souls series. Like, I just dislike it. I understand why people do love it though. And I have heard from people when I've stated that Dark Souls is not my jam, and they'll write in and tell me why it's theirs. And I really appreciate that feedback. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and I feel that Dark Souls is one of those games where it's very difficult. So because of its greater difficulty, it's like greater the reward. You know,
exactly. It's that payoff, right? Where you go in, you fight real hard, you make it out by the skin of your teeth, and then you feel so good. It's just like, I don't know, you want to have a smoke after you beat a boss or something.
No, I gotcha. I understand that. Well, just little touch on podcasting a little bit. Yeah, I'm really curious. You know, you have the Gamers In, which is I would argue it's a successful podcast. When did you first? What was your first experiences with podcasting?
So with podcasts, I started listening to podcasts in college. So maybe how many years ago would that be? Like almost 10 years. I got an iPod because I was like, I want to be a Mac user now. So I got a Mac and I got an iPod with it because it was like the student deal. Like, you got an iPod with your new MacBook. And there was these podcasts, and I'm like, oh, what are these? So I look up the podcast and I start listening to Extra Life Radio, which is Scott Johnson's old podcast.
Yeah.
And I got into all of his stuff and basically still listen to it to this day. And that's how I got into listening to podcasts. And I always wanted to do podcasting, and I actually had a podcast in college that was it's not online, and if it is, I apologize for you trying to find it. But it was called like Programmers Union or something, and me and my friends, we used to like host these LAN parties.
Yeah.
And we did a podcast as part of that, where we'd talk about video game news and interview people and talk about these LAN parties we'd throw, which were open to the public. You know, we would just charge people to like split the cost of we'd rent out hotel conference rooms.
Oh,
basically.
Cool.
It was a lot of fun. And honestly, one of the things I miss the most about, you know, being around my circle of friends, like, I would totally love to do that. And it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that expensive. We just call up a hotel and be like, hey, I want to book a conference room. How much does it cost? No, it's not a wedding. Me and my friends are just going to play video games. And it was really fun. It was a lot of fun. And that was sort of my first foray into podcasting.
I gotcha. So I'm just curious, how long did you listen to podcasts before you actually started your own? Because you said you got into podcasting in college, and you said you had a podcast in college. So, like, did you listen to them 2 or 3 times and be like, oh, I could do this? Or was it more like over a year you kind of like was like, this is interesting and something I want to get into?
Yeah, I think I don't think anyone listened to the podcast in college besides the people who, because we didn't host it properly. Like, I had a friend who is hardcore into Linux, and I said, like, we got to put this on iTunes, and he's like, no one will go to iTunes. iTunes is for the devil. Like, I'm a Linux user, and he had a goatee and everything, and it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But you know, nowadays, like, you have to, you don't have to, but you submit to iTunes just because podcasting. Yeah. And iTunes, a lot of apps pull off of iTunes. And so I don't really consider, again, that time as like a serious podcasting, but it was more just like hanging out with, friends and just talking, and we just happened to be recording. It wasn't super serious. But might have been like the year I started listening to podcasts, and I said, oh, it'd be really fun to try this. And it was a lot of fun, but we didn't take it as seriously as I do now, which is, podcasting now, which would be probably like 5 years since I started listening to podcasts. And I always liked the idea of doing podcasting, but I didn't think I would get into it like I am now, where I have 2 active shows and, 2 shows that I still try to support over the course of just having free time. And it's just now I'm doing it for realsies, I guess, which is the not a technical term. I don't know why I said that, but I've always wanted to do podcasting, but I always wanted to do it right, and I think in college it was just tougher to do it right because there was more people who the people I were doing it with just wanted to do it for fun. And then when I talked to Jocelyn about starting a video game podcast, The Gamers Inn, it was from a standpoint of like, we should do this seriously and really go for it. And now we've been doing it for over 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's the most fun we have. And it's the most fun I have podcasting. And just, I love podcasting because now it's my chance to talk to people about video games. This is why I love going on other shows, because it's like, awesome, I get to schedule in an hour to talk about video games. And that's always something that I just really look forward to, because I don't get that opportunity anymore. When I was in university and I was living with 2 of my best friends, we talk about video games constantly. There was no need for an outlet to have a podcast about video games. But now that I'm married and have a kid, and my friends are scattered, I still talk to them, but I don't get to like look over my shoulder and be like, hey, screw this assignment, let's talk about the merits of Uncharted 3 or 2 or whatever came out at that point. But yeah, it took me a while to do it seriously, but honestly it's probably the best decision I've made, and I've made a lot of good decisions, but that was one of them for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, I believe that's it for the interview. Let's just wrap things up here. You mentioned The Gamers Inn. Any other podcasts you want to talk about, or where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sure. Well, if you want to see everything I do, you can go to ryanmurphy.ca. It has a list of all my shows, both active and not on hiatus, but just inactive, I'd say, because I've just been super busy. We just moved. Work's been picking up. But yeah, The Gamers Inn, gamersinpodcast.com, where Joss and I talk about video games. Next week, I could probably prepare for, excitement overload, as the Switch will be arriving probably like a day or 2 after we record. So yeah, Nintendo. And also my other active show, Zombies Ate My Podcast.com, where Lou, Bob, and I talk about zombie news and The Walking Dead. What else would we have to talk to? We have weekly content to cover thanks to the wonderful AMC. Even if we all don't agree, Walking Dead is very good, but it has its moments. And my other show, Sleeping with the Elephant, you can go check out the back catalog there. I've sort of stopped with everything going on in the States, trying to figure out how I'll definitely continue it, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it without just being really disappointed. But yeah, Sleeping with the Elephant. And then I also do So I Married a Podcaster with my wife, which may be coming back soon. I'm still thinking about how to do that, but
that sounds like
that's
fun.
sort of my podcast. But you can find all that at ryanmurphy.ca, and follow me on Twitter at rmurphy.
Awesome. Well, you can also follow me on Twitter at BlueCowz with a Z, BLUECOWZ. Adam, you're at Twitter.
My Twitter is SmoothDog5, SMOOTHDOG5.
Awesome. You can contact this here show at collegegamersshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the College Gamers Podcast Facebook page. And I think that's it. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been awesome.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you for having me. I really love coming on podcasts and talking about video games. So this has been awesome. Thank you guys very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and in case I don't talk to you, but I hope you enjoy your Nintendo Switch. Have fun.
Oh,
and I
thank you.
hope Zelda's as good as everyone hopes it is. So, but
Especially with all those JoyCon issues.
I hope so too.
yeah. All right. Well,
Yeah. Oof. Well, yeah. Hopefully that blows over.
I really hope so. Yeah.
yeah. Well, again, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Bye-bye.
Later. You want to say bye too?
Oh yeah. Goodbye, everybody.
Yay!
This has been a Blue Cow Radio production. Find more at bluecowradio.com.